G'day, Starlo here. This is Pejar Dam, not far north of Goulburn in New South Wales. I reckon it's probably 25 years or more since I fished here, and that was always off the bank. Back in the 1990s, this was a really famous trophy trout lake. It produced some absolute monster trout. And then unfortunately, during the millennium drought, it all but dried up. It got back to a tiny little pool and all the fish were lost. Since then, it's been up and down, but at the moment it's got plenty of water in it. It's been quite well stocked by New South Wales DPI fisheries with trout, but also with Australian bass. I'm here in August and it's very chilly. The water is about 10 degrees. I don't think I'm going to catch a bass. I'm really hoping to be able to find some trout. I had a mate who was here quite recently and he said it was really tough going. They didn't see much in the way of life and they didn't catch any fish out here on the main basin of the lake. They did get a few up in the river arm, but only small rainbows. So I really don't know what to expect. What I'd like to do is some lock style fly fishing, drifting with my drogue and casting 2 or 3 flies on a fairly long leader and see if I can catch some trout that way. But I just want to get a little bit of a feel for it first out in the boat. So I'm trolling a lure at the moment just to cover a bit of ground and have a bit of a look at the sounder. It's interesting to see the weed beds and the contours of the bottom and just work out where I might do some drifts to do some fly fishing later. Now I should point out that powered craft are not allowed on this lake, and it's really hard to get a definition about what they mean by that. Obviously I've got an outboard on this vessel, but I'm not using it. I'm only using my electric motor, and everyone that I've spoken to says that that's fine, and that a lot of people have come here and done that and no one seems to have got in any strife. But it's very hard to find any absolute directives online about whether you're actually allowed to do that. Anyway, suck it and see, I guess. If I get told to go, I'll go. But I'm not going to use the outboard. I'm just going to use the electric, have a little bit of a troll, then set up a couple of drifts, and we'll see what happens. Oh! Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Yep, I hadn't even finished doing my intro to this video, and I was hooked up. How good is that? Well, that's not a bad start. I've only come about 300 metres from the boat ramp, trolling a little relatively shallow, medium running, I guess, minnow that gets down to about probably 1.5 metres. And I think I've got a nice little rainbow on here. Better grab the net. Oh yeah, it's a chunky little rainbow. That's a great start. Well, it was certainly worth having a troll. He's come off the hooks too. Beautiful rainbow. It'd be good to eat at that size and in that condition, so I'm going to pop him in the live well. It'll go quite well in the smoker, that one, and if you'd like to find out how to smoke trout, I did a YouTube video on that as well. I'll put the link up here and down in the description. Alright, let's get back into it. I'd barely gotten myself straightened out and set up to troll again when the second trout of the morning jumped on. Oh, there's one. Oh, what a jumper. I better turn that electric off. This was starting to look like it might be a red hot session. Well, this bodes quite well for having a crack at them on fly. I've now covered about 600 metres from the ramp and I'm on to my second fish. I would call that a pretty good fishery. It's another rainbow. It looked a little bit dark, this one, when it came out of the water. And you'd sort of expect that at this time of the year. I haven't even had a chance to put my sunnies on yet. Grab my landing net. He might be a bit bigger, this one, I think. Oh, he's playing up. Wow, they've got some go for their size. I've really got too much line out here. It's the trouble when you're on your own. Got to do everything. Yeah, he's about the same size. Gee whiz, I'll tell you what, when they get a bit more size about them, they're going to go hard. I'll try not to get tangled up in the landing net. There we are, lovely little rainbow trout. Might get to take a feed home. I wonder how long these are as a matter of interest. Yeah, about 32, 33 centimetres, so quite nice. They'll go well in the smoker, that's for sure. What I'm doing here is called flatlining. In other words, I've got nothing else on the line except for the lure. I'm not using a downrigger or lead core line or anything to get it down, or a paravane. So it's only running about 1.5 meters deep, maybe 1.6 metres deep back at that distance. And just covering a bit of water, nice slow walking pace. I checked the lure in the water beside the boat first to make sure it was going to operate well at this speed. And it looked really good, so that'll do me. It's a cool, overcast day with a light easterly blowing, and I'm not a big fan of easterlies for trout fishing or any kind of freshwater fishing for that matter, but it doesn't seem to be putting them off too much. I'm trying to follow a bit of a contour here. It's quite deep out there in the middle, 25, 30 metres, and then it comes up reasonably suddenly and gets into the shallows and the reeds over here. So I'm actually working along a bit of a contour where it comes up from about 8 metres up to about 3 or 4 metres, and that's where I've caught the 2 fish so far, on that bit of a contour. So I'll keep following that. I'm going to get up a little bit further and then set myself up to fly fish and do the drift back with the wind. This is a bit of fun. I don't do much trolling, but it's a good way to cover water and a good way to find fish when you're on a new waterway like this. As you can probably hear, we're right beside the road. This is quite a busy road between Goulburn and Crookwell, and there's a fair bit of traffic on it. You could easily fish off the bank in numerous places along here, and I'm sure that casting a lure or a fly from the bank would be quite effective at times. Great to see Pejar bouncing back. I hope there's some bigger fish in here than those little 30-odd centimetre rainbows. I'm sure there will be. Whether I can find them is another question entirely. I'll just give one more click on the electric because we're actually pushing into that breeze now. It's probably blowing about 5 or 6 knots. So I just needed a few more herbs on the lecky to keep us going at a good trolling speed. I'm in about 10 metres of water now, so I'll edge back in towards the bank and try and find that 3 to 6 metre contour where those 2 fish have come from. A lot of people, when they troll, they put the rod in the holder, and I think that's one of the reasons I don't like trolling much. You're sort of divorced from what it is that you're doing, but if you hold it and work the lure, you can feel the little nuances, and you really feel that thump when they hit. You get a lot more strikes too, I find, if you actually do hold the rod and give the lure a bit of extra action, maybe drop it back every now and again and then pump it forward to change the speed. It's amazing how often on those speed changes you get hit. Well, it's pretty overcast today, but it's actually quite glary off the water, so I'm going to slip the Makos on. Oh, that's much better. Apart from anything else, it'll stop my eyes watering from the cold. We seem to have got out of the breeze a little bit now, and our speed's picked up, so I'll just drop us back. We're doing around 1.8 to 2 knots, which is a pretty good speed, I find, for trout. You can go a little bit quicker depending on what lures you're using, but this feels about right to me. Getting quite shallow now, 2.5 with the weed bed and the odd bit of stick poking up from the bottom. Oh, it's nice in that bit of sunlight though, and out of the wind. It's actually quite pleasant. All right, that'll do me. I'll bring this in and get set up for some fly. I can see the bottom, it's really clear, the water. We're in about a metre of water and I can really easily see the bottom. Okay, time for a change. Righto, so I've got my drogue out, I've rigged my fly rod. I'm using my 11-foot long 5-weight switch rod here. I like the bit of extra length with this style of stuff. I forgot my proper seat. I've got a folding step ladder that's actually a great seat. Of course you can do this standing up, but it is rather nice just sitting down and getting into the swing of it. And what I'm doing is casting a couple of weighted wet flies on a very long leader well ahead of the drifting boat. I know they're sinking quite quickly, so I don't need to let them get down for all that long. I just get a comfortable amount of line out that I can throw every cast, and I'll mix up various retrieves and see if we can find a couple. And we've drifted out into 8 metres of water here, so I'm just going to move into a little bit shallower. Nice using a combination of the drogue and the electric motor. You can really position yourself well doing this. Nice conditions now, but no action whatsoever on the fly. Well, that's interesting. I saw this floating on the surface and thought that it was a little fish, and it sure is. It's a little gudgeon, and wow, it's been hit by something. Could have been a bird, I guess, but it also could have been a fish that's crunched that. Very similar in size to that lure I was trolling before, and a fair bit bigger than the flies I'm throwing, so maybe there's a bit of a message in that. Wow, with a food source like that in here, they're going to grow pretty big. Oh, it's still alive. Amazing. Oh well, I don't think you've got much chance, mate, but I'll put you back in. But try as I might, I couldn't find a fish on the fly, and eventually I had to admit defeat. Well, the weather certainly changes fast here. We went from 6 or 8 knots of easterly and overcast to sunny, warm and absolutely still, which is actually not ideal for that lock-style fly fishing. Mind you, I didn't get so much as a hit on the fly. So I'm going to have another troll and maybe wait for the breeze to come back up. Just see if we can find a few fish. I'm pretty sure I've seen 2 splash on the surface, but there are a lot of birds around, so it's a little bit hard to know for sure. So I'll have another troll through this area where I got the 2 fish straight up and see if we can find some more, and then maybe I'll have a go on the fly again. I'm holding the rod up because I've come over some shallower ground that was 2 metres and less, so I just don't want to foul the lure up in the weed. So by holding the rod tip up, I'm able to make it run a little bit shallower. And now as we come down the drop off on the other side, I'll just lower the rod again. As with a lot of impoundments, there's a no boating zone close to the spillway. The water's actually flowing over the spillway at the moment, not a lot, but it is going over. So they have an exclusion zone there as a safety measure so people don't go over the spillway in their boats or kayaks or whatever. So that's a line of buoys. It's still a couple of 100 metres in front of me down here. The wind turbines have slowly spun down to a stop. So calm. Oh, there's one. Oh, yes. Ha ha! Oh, they're such good jumpers. Well, they're definitely down in this area. Maybe I need to do some more fly fishing down here. As you can see, I'm right down near the wall, not near the spillway though, so I'm allowed to be here. Another rainbow about the same size. He might be a tiny bit bigger. And he's in the net. I'll just anchor us here so we don't end up drifting onto the rocks. As you can see, I'm a short cast from what the Americans would call riprap, which is the rock fill that the wall's made out of. I remember from the days when I used to fish here 20 odd years ago that spinning off the wall was quite productive. There we go. It's a considerably darker fish than those first couple, but still in immaculate condition. Very nice. Another one for the smoker. I made a couple more troll runs along the wall area, but I didn't get any more strikes. And with the sun sinking and the temperature dropping, I decided to call it a day. After such a promising start, it had actually been a little bit disappointing. I'm running parallel with the buoys of the exclusion zone here, and down there you might be able to see the spillway. The water's actually only just trickling over it. It's where all those cormorants are standing. Well, I certainly didn't set the world on fire. 3 fairly modest rainbow trout, and they were the only 3 hits I got. Could not get a strike on the fly. It is a tough fishery, my mate was right. Feels to me like it might be a little bit understocked, but who knows, maybe they're up the river or something. But anyway, it's good to see some water back in Pejar, and I'll be keeping my ear to the ground and see if it fires up. Until next time, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines. If you enjoyed this one and some of my other YouTube videos, please think about giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. You can also help me to create more content by shouting me a beer or buying me a coffee. Check out the description and comments on this one to find out how. Cheers!